The biggest trade week of the fantasy season is here, and boy, do we have you covered. Faraz, we might have been sent, 100 questions by you, the viewers, the listeners, the people on Discord, and we picked the best 8, plus our top buys and sells of the week. Are you ready, my man?
I'm so ready. I've been trying to make some trades, man. It's hard to get people to bite, week 3, but I mean, these trades are coming in hot. So let's get to it.
People like me saying, hey, be patient, might force people to not move some of the underperforming pieces, but we're going to tell you which ones to attack and maybe which ones to deal away. By the way, I'm so glad that so many of you are enjoying the show. Hopefully you sold high on, Dylan Sampson and Keon Coleman that we told you last week and traded for Bashal Tutin on top of it. If you could, hit subscribe, leave a thumbs up. We'll have the show every single Thursday of the NFL season, but this one is even more special in particular because we have 8 video questions and we'll send it over the first one. This is Zufa.
All right, boys, this is my trade question for you. So I'm in a 14-man league, half PPR. I am loaded up at wide receiver, but I'm absolutely cooked at running back. I have CMC, but besides him, my only other running backs are Bill, who, God bless his soul, but that's not who you really want as your RB2 right now, and Kenneth Gainwell on my bench. So that's all the running backs I have. So I need to make a move. So the trade offer would be I give up Brian Thomas Jr. and in exchange, I get Travis Etienne and Quinshon Judkins. I think I should take this trade. I don't want to say it feels like a no-brainer, but, Etienne's off to a great start. I think he's finally healthy. And Judkins looked great on limited touches this past week. So, it sucks giving up on BTJ. It's a little scary this early because we know how good he can be, but the vibes are kind of sketchy, and I need running back. So, yeah, let me know what you think I should do. Appreciate you taking my question. Love the show, and I love you. So,
right off the bat, Faraz, one of those maybe be patient or not in BTJ. What are your thoughts here?
I love getting 2 running backs back, but this is selling BTJ pretty low. Like, the fantasy points haven't been there, and everyone's been talking about it this week, but it was a terrible game for him last week, right? For a variety of reasons. We don't have to get into all of it. We talked about it all this week, but still top 15 in target share, still top 10 in air yard share. This offense is trying to figure itself out. It's a new OC. We like the OC. Part of the reasons why we were buying into this offense in the first place. Let's not get too carried away, guys. Take a deep breath. 2 weeks in, we know who BTJ is, over a large sample size. And, when I look at trading him for ETN, I have questions around what his ETN's opportunity looks like in 2 weeks, right? Like from now, like with Bashal Tutin moving in, we saw a little bit of that already in week 2. So I think making this trade for ETN and another running back who's also pretty risky is more riskier than just keeping BTJ and rocking with him.
I think you're being generous here. This is an absolutely not for me. The best is yet to come here for Brian Thomas Jr. And as you said, there's already an argument that we've seen the best for Travis Etienne. 2 or even 3 things stand out to me. All right. The Jaguars rushing game so far this season. And when we think of, early parts of the year, we should think of the opponents that they've lined up against because it's a small sample size. That's been the Carolina Panthers and the Cincinnati Bengals. All right. Easy matchups. Now, Liam Cohen is great with a rushing scheme and all that type of stuff, but a questionable offensive line heading into the season has blocked its ass off and looked like one of the best units so far. I'm not sure if that's going to sustain itself. And the second is exactly what you said. They want to get Bashal Tutin more and more involved. I mean, just look at Etienne. He had 65% of the backfield touches in week 1 and accounted for 57%. That could clearly go to like a 40-40-20 split with even LaQuint Allen coming in pure passing situations as we go along. Plus, right now, the Jaguars are 7th in running back touches. And we know that September has historically been Travis Etienne's best month of the entire calendar. Ryan Heath pointed this out, that in the last 2 seasons, 2023 and 2024, Travis Etienne has managed 4.36 yards per carry over that time. That dropped down to 3.5 and 3.4 in October and November. So look, maybe I'm biased for odds because every single time we've done the show, I said, go out and get Bashal Tutin. But this is just clearly one of those instances where the rookie is only going to grow his usage, and maybe the veteran, as the season goes along, who is playing really well and a major fantasy asset and already a win from your fantasy leagues, is going to decline as the year goes along too.
Yeah, I'm with you. And, honestly, and our listeners know too, man, I've been a Bashal Tootin stan this entire summer. So I feel like every time I talk about him, it's like, all right, here we go again. Faraz is talking about Tootin. But it is what it is. You saw him last week, man. Like every single touch, both receptions, that first reception, even, forget about the end zone. Forget about when he got into the end zone, that making that one guy miss, making it look absolutely silly. But the other reception that he got, both of his targets were designed for him specifically. And man, he made a bunch of guys miss, a bunch of tacklers miss as well on that other screen. So I'm with you, man. Like, it's just a matter of time if Tootin either takes over or whether just this straight up becomes a 50-50 split at some point.
And I know a lot of the viewers probably have Brian Thomas Jr. on their team. So just a moment for him. He definitely needs to play better as an individual. The zone stuff is not working great with his communication with Trevor Lawrence right now. He has to be stronger over the middle of the field, but he's also the wide receiver 3 in expected fantasy points through 2 weeks, but the wide receiver 52 in actual points. He will not be remaining the wide receiver 52 or 42 or probably even the 32 moving forward, right? That'll be closer to what the expected points are going to be. And it would actually concern me more, Faraz, if this passing offense, and this goes for Travis Hunter as well, if this passing offense was great and BTJ and Travis Hunter were like dragging it down. It's more so the entire passing attack needs to figure itself out, needs to be ironed out and be more crisp. And when that's the case, we will get to a point where Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter are kind of the figurehead. So rather than go and get ETN and Quinshon Judkins, Faraz, I would aim maybe towards like the Cam Scatterboo or Woody Marks area, because you have enough running back fill-in right now to not deal away, I think, a top 15 wide receiver at the end of the day. Second video question, this one from P-Hack.
Hey guys, could really use some help on this trade that I got offered today. I'm in a 12-team PPR league with 2 flexes, and I got offered AJ Brown, Jordan Mason, and Jalen Waddle for my Chase Brown and George Pickens. I love George Pickens, and I really don't want to get rid of him. But with the Chase Brown situation over in Cincinnati with Joe Burrow, and Jordan Mason now being called the bell cow over in Minnesota, I'm really leaning towards pulling the trigger on this one. I'm still a little bit skeptical of AJ Brown, but I know he's a dog when he is getting those targets. So please let me know what you guys think.
Faraz, getting 3 players, trading away 2. What are your thoughts?
I want to know who I'm going to drop. But my problem with this trade is this. Once Aaron Jones comes back, what are you going to do? Like, do we believe that Jordan Mason takes over completely? Listen, I love Mason. We just polled our audience yesterday. How many of you guys have Jordan Mason? The poll came back at like 80%, which is absolutely ridiculous. But I'll say that, I mean, people selectively chose to
of course
participate, but still it's kind of hilarious. I love him coming in. AJ Brown can be a needle mover. But man, this offense, man, is just, they have no plans to throw the ball right now, right? Like if they didn't have to throw the ball against the Chiefs last week, who are they going to have to throw it against? I saw a matchup several weeks from now, maybe, against a couple of these high powered offenses. But, with the state of the Cowboys defense, George Pickens might have as many boom games as AJ Brown does this year. You know what I mean? Like they're the new Bengals, they're just going to continue to sling it. Their defense stinks, and he could have some big games too. So I'm leaning just to kind of stay put, and stay with Chase Brown, George Pickens here personally.
This is why I love the show, is because, we send each other these questions, but we don't know what the other person is going to answer. I thought we would be on different pages here. We're on the exact same page. I am also of the opinion of just keeping Chase Brown and George Pickens. First, let's take it from who you think you're getting here in AJ Brown, right? And you mentioned it. The Eagles averaged 26.4 pass attempts per game last season. They were at that time just the 8th team in over the last 10 seasons to throw fewer than 27 passes per game. That has dropped down to 22.5 so far this year. 22.5. I'm with you. I don't think an offense of Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, AJ Brown, and Devontae Smith is going to be last in the league in 10, 15, 25 yard explosive plays. But right now they are. The opposite end of that is the Dallas Cowboys are 3rd in wide receiver usage across the league at this moment. And I understand like the Chase Brown stuff is slightly concerning, that he's ranking around the running back 25 in points right now, but he's also the running back 5 in usage. And whenever a team goes to their backup quarterback, like the Bengals did back in 2023 when Jake Browning started from, week 12 through week 17. Joe Mixon was the running back 10 in points per game during that point. Now, I understand Brian Callahan's not helping, design the offense, and they have some different offensive linemen. But at the same time, we're already getting a back that is still playing about 80 to 90% of snaps and seeing very high expected fantasy points. And that just hasn't put into practice on top of it in actual fantasy points. So I want the ones that I know are getting the work and are also in high powered passing attacks. And of this grouping, while I think AJ Brown is a nice buy low and Jordan Mason, if you drafted him, congratulations, your value's already increased. Chase Brown and George Pickens is still the better end of this deal for me.
I wouldn't be surprised if Jordan Mason outscores Chase Brown over the next 4 games without Aaron Jones. Great short-term win there. But what are you going to do, man? What are you going to do after that? It might be a 0 after that in terms of the expected difference between these two guys. Chase Brown, like you mentioned, the volume could go up a little bit. They could depend on him a little bit. But we also saw with Jake Browning when he replaced Joe Burrow a couple of years ago, their screen rate went way up too. So those targets that were missing for Chase Brown that we were so used to last season, we could see a lot more of that come back, while Joe Burrow's out as well.
Yeah, I wrote down 4 words, just where is the upgrade? And as you just pointed out, it could be Jordan Mason over the next 4 games versus Chase Brown, but for the entire rest of the season, that's only, the first 6 weeks. What about the 16 weeks that we are playing in this whole year? Plus, is AJ Brown a certified upgrade over George Pickens at this point? I don't know. That is debatable. And then Jalen Waddle, it's so weird that we're having this conversation and we haven't mentioned Jalen Waddle's name once. And we'll see what happens, tonight and Thursday Night Football. But he's also being tested out pregame with a shoulder issue. And if the Dolphins are having a difficult time just throwing the football entirely, and then they still can't incorporate Jalen Waddle as like a primary pass catching force at this point too.
It's so sad that he's just viewed as a throw-in. Jalen Waddle is so talented. And, Mike McDaniel, man, I don't know what's going on there, but the fact that he's just considered a throw-in on any other offense, he would be, a legitimate, useful fantasy player.
He's top 14 in salary at the position right now. It's crazy.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. Unbelievable. But, I personally think that Jalen Waddle is somebody who could end up increasing value. If Tyreek Hill isn't the same guy, I don't think he is. And I think he's going to have a rough time tonight personally. But you can't really count on him moving forward.
By the way, if you want to get your video questions in next time, there are 2 ways of doing that. One is the Discord link down below. You can also get them in on Faraz's Instagram page, which is Upper Hand Fantasy. That is also linked in the description down below. So we just got a question, and we got a bunch on kind of the Bengals fallout after the Joe Burrow being out for the next 3 months. We just answered one on Chase Brown. Here's one on T. Higgins.
What's up, guys? I have a fantasy trade conundrum. In my 10-man superflex, the Joe Burrow injury just ruined my wide receiver room. I had T. Higgins as my wide receiver 1, and I cannot afford to start him up there anymore. I'm looking to get a new wide receiver 1 with my running back depth. This morning, I was sent a trade which has me receiving Tet McMillan and Chris Olave and giving away Alvin Kamara and Ricky Pearsall. Kamara is currently my running back 2 behind A-Chain, but I also have Javonte Williams sat on my bench for 2 weeks in a row. I'm wondering if Javonte will be good, if I can afford to start him instead of Kamara, if Tet McMillan is worth Alvin Kamara. I don't really care about Ricky Pearsall. He just lost Brock Purdy. I'm iffy about him, but I just want to know what you guys think. Should I take this trade?
Faraz, this is one of your guys. You kick it off.
I really like this trade. Man. The fact that you have Javonte on your bench, who, man, Josh, I don't know, man. You tell me if I'm crazy here, but I'm ranking Javonte as a low-end RB1 this week. I don't know. I might be crazy, but I can't believe these words are actually coming out of my mouth right now. But, you don't have to make that decision now between Kamara and Javonte, which is every single week that's going to plague you. Every Sunday morning, you're going to be like, man, who do I start between Javonte and Kamara? At least over the short term, right? At least over the next couple of weeks. Maybe it becomes obvious at some point, but that's a tough decision. But you get 2 wide receivers back who are locks for targets every single week, very, very solid wide receiver 2s, I think, especially Tet. I'm not sure if I'm playing either of them over T. Higgins just yet. I think T. Higgins was fine, good enough with Browning. in a couple years ago. I don't want to use that sample size to make that real decision this year, but AJ Terrell has an injury, hamstring injury, so he might be out for the Falcons. So maybe I might go Tet at that point over Higgins. But like I said, Higgins wasn't terrible with Browning. But all that to say that, I think you get some serious ammo moving forward if you make this trade, because these are two wide receivers who can go up in value, and you might even be able to make another trade to make your team better.
So just going back to the last time that Jake Browning was the starter, and again, it's a small sample, it was from 2 years ago, week 12 through week 17. T. Higgins was about the wide receiver 25 in points per game, which is actually better than Jamar Chase, and he had 2 top 10 scoring weeks during that time. They both missed some snaps. They both missed an entire game. So again, tough to read into it, but I just want to point that out because that doesn't mean this is totally like lost hope. Across the league, Jake Browning is one of, I would say, the better backup quarterbacks, and they'll change their offense. It's not just going to be the Joe Burrow offense here. 2 things. Okay. I am also making this move. While so many other rookies that were drafted in the early to mid portions of your league are struggling so far, the 3 studs are Tyler Warren, Emeka Egbuka, and T-Mac, Tetairoa McMillan. And this Panthers team is number 1 in wide receiver usage at this point. And when you watch T-Mac play, he's already like doing elite level stuff. He's already looking like an NFL caliber wide receiver in terms of creating yards at the catch, which by the way, he did at Arizona, creating and forcing 26 missed tackles that year. And then, on third down conversions, he's the go-to guy. Everything from Bryce Young to T-Mac is actually really good. It's just Bryce Young targeting anyone else on the team that is the major issue. And then final point here for us. The Javonte Williams discussion here is an important one. I know this is a 10-man super flex league, but we're already at the point where Javonte Williams should be a starter in 10-man leagues. Like last season when Rico Dowdle took over as the Dallas Cowboys top running back, that was from week 4 and on, he was the running back 17 in points per game. That Cowboys team did not have Dak Prescott. That Cowboys team was not as good of an offense as this version is. They didn't score as many points as this Cowboys one is. So with that improvement, you should maybe be looking at least as the running back 17 the rest of the way in rest of season rankings for Javonte Williams. And that could get up to running back 15 or running back 12 overall. He looks better than he did last year, and he's on a better offense this year than the one that the Cowboys put out there on the field.
You mentioned the opportunity and his surroundings, but Javonte's actually playing better. Like he's actually making guys miss. He's showing some explosiveness. He's definitely making, creating yards after contact. So from an individual perspective as well, you combine that with all the outside stuff, the environment, you're looking at a pretty good situation here, right? So if this version of Javonte is anything like who he was, even if it's like 70% of who he was his rookie season, I will take it because he was damn good coming in as a prospect and damn good in his rookie year. So I'm happy making this move.
Have you ever taken a couple of minutes and Googled yourself? You would be stunned, shocked, heck, even appalled what comes up online, where you've worked, where you went to school, maybe your high school sports statistics. I mean, seriously, like reservations that you've made, dating profiles, so on and so forth. Again, it is disturbing how much information is out there, and it's not just about you. It's about the people around you. It's about your family on top of that. So what you all need to do is take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me now at a special discount for you, our listeners. You can get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you get to joindeleteme.com/underdog and use promo code underdog at checkout. The only way to get 20% off is to go to joindeleteme.com/underdog and enter code underdog at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/underdog, code underdog. I love Ricky Pearsall. Alvin Kamara is still kicking it despite once again being underrated and underdrafted in leagues this year. But Faraz, this actually takes us into our buys of the weeks and sells of the week, because to me, Chris Olave is the buy low of the week and maybe of the season. He's wide receiver 42 in points, but wide receiver 6 in fantasy usage at this point. Again, he was missed on a perfect route inside of the red zone for a touchdown. That would have skyrocketed the people's perception of him. He was routing up San Francisco corners on a series in, series out basis. I understand that not many people are going out of their way to check out a New Orleans Saints game at this point, but going through their offenses on every Monday and every Tuesday, this is a fun team. They're an enjoyable unit to watch. I mean, right now they're 7th in plays per game. This is exactly what Kellen Moore brings to every single offense he's coached. And again, they're low-key fun. You will want to be watching the Saints team, and Spencer Rattler is definitely doing enough and making plenty of positive plays for, I think, Chris Olave to possibly finish as a top 15 wide receiver the rest of the way. I know that we sound like a broken record because all of us fantasy analysts say this about Chris Olave, but I do think this year is different because of the Kellen Moore factor on top of it.
I was just going to say the perpetual buy low, right? In Chris Olave for sure. No, I think Kellen Moore definitely makes a difference. I was actually kind of hoping that Chris Olave would play that slot role, that Kellen Moore has, kind of made famous over the last few years. But I'll take it. My only issue, and you kind of alluded to the fact that, Spencer Rattler missed Olave in the end zone. 57% of Olave's targets have been catchable this year. And the good thing is that he's getting the volume, right? So a lot of that can be fixed with the amount of volume that he's getting. 31% target share, which is absolutely ridiculous. 40% air yard share. That type of utilization is wide receiver 1 utilization. And the only reason why he's not a wide receiver 1 right now in actual fantasy points is because I think the targets are just not, on target. Now, Juwan Johnson, on the other hand, like Spencer Rattler has no problem finding Juwan Johnson. I think it was 90% of his targets have been catchable, through 2 weeks. So he has no problems there. I think just Olave, where he's playing on the perimeter, Rattler's having, a little bit of an issue there. But it can get better, man. I think Kellen Moore's running a good offense. Like you said, it's a lot better than a lot of people thought. With Rattler, he threw 3 touchdowns last week with no picks. So it could get better, I think, moving forward. So I'm with you, man. I think Olave is one of those guys. He hasn't scored yet, too. Rashid Shaheed has. Juwan Johnson has. Right. I think those touchdowns are also coming for Olave.
Who's your buy of the week?
I'm going with Josh Jacobs, man. And one of the reasons why I'm going with Josh Jacobs is that so many people are looking for a running back right now, right? Like you could talk about wide receivers and, I actually put out a video around, buying some wide receivers, and all the comments were like, we need running backs. So I do think that, Josh Jacobs is playing well, right? He's getting volume. His fantasy output, though, is lower than his volume would suggest. Even though you look at the box score, you're like, that's not bad. 14, 15 fantasy points. Like that's pretty good. But he's 5th in snap share. He's 3rd in rush attempt share. He basically has the entire backfield to himself. He's only had a 2% target share this year. He was at 9% last year. He's already tied for 1st in red zone carries as well. So those touchdowns, like they're going to come in bunches. Like he's going to have a couple of multi-touchdown games, and based on the volume that he's getting, he's on a great offense. With the volume he's getting, he should be closer to about 20 fantasy points a game than right now where he's at about 14, 15 fantasy points per game.
Faraz, you and I are friends, so I feel like I can say this to you. Who is trading away Josh Jacobs in this environment? I get your point. I think you like Josh Jacobs. I think everyone likes Josh Jacobs, so I don't know what you would have. I feel like you'd have to offer way too much in order to pluck Josh Jacobs out of someone's grasp, because we look across the running back environment right now, and there are a lot of high drafted backs like Kyron Williams or Breece Hall. I can keep going on and on through this list that people are concerned about. And then all the rookie running backs, people think it's already a dead season for them only after 2 weeks. So why would anyone be willing to deal away the running back 13 in fantasy points right now?
No, that's a great question. Now, he was already going a little bit too late in drafts, right? He was already
end of round 2
suspected in drafts, right? So I don't know if coming into the season, people were really expecting this huge year for Josh Jacobs, because guys like, Chase Brown and guys like Bucky Irving and, all these running backs were being drafted ahead of him. Whereas now moving forward, I don't know, like, guys like Chase Brown, like you probably want Josh Jacobs. You can probably add a little bit on top. I would personally, to get someone in Josh Jacobs in a more secure fantasy environment. Now, if that other team, it really depends on what that other team is lacking, right? That other team might be lacking wide receivers. The other team might be lacking as an actual tight end, where you might have Juwan Johnson, guys like that on your bench. You might have drafted someone like Tyler Warren as your second tight end. So it's really about whoever has Josh Jacobs, like what do they need, right? in order for us to, like, if you have Javonte Williams, you can maybe add on to Javonte Williams, who's been killing it, and maybe give him the wide receiver 2 that they're missing, right? To get a more secure running back. So yes, you're going to have to pay up for sure for Josh Jacobs. No doubt about it. But in order to get somebody who's super secure, who you can start every single week as your RB1 to be confident with it, I think you're going to have to pay up. There's no doubt.
My sell this week, maybe you can flip him for Josh Jacobs. This is Chuba Hubbard. He's running back 9 right now, which is only 0.2 points away from Saquon Barkley at this moment. I'm nervous about Chuba Hubbard moving forward. First of all, his only 2 touchdowns so far this season and why he's running back 9 have been in the receiving department. I'm not necessarily calling Chuba Hubbard a bad pass catcher, but that is kind of outlierish when we look at this passing offense. And he's certainly not one of the best receiving backs that you think you can copy and paste that and even that efficiency on a weekly basis. And also, the Panthers have been horrible running the football, and it gets even worse. They lost their center in Austin Corbett and Caden Mays. That's kind of evened itself out. But losing Rob Hunt at right tackle is just so massive and so significant. So Chuba Hubbard last year really got it going because he was the metronome of this offense and super consistent in the second half of the season. Right now, the Panthers have not proven that they can stay in phase, stay in neutral scripts, and really just flat out run and impose their will on their opponents. And so this might be the time after, again, 2 unusual receiving touchdowns for Chuba Hubbard to deal him away for maybe an undervaluing but more consistent asset.
Like Josh Jacobs. Totally get that.
Yeah.
I hear that. And I think a lot of the points too have come in garbage time. Now there's going to be a lot of garbage time plays, but here's the thing. In week 1, Rico Dowdle was the pass and down back, right? Week 2, Chuba Hubbard got a lot more of those snaps. So what is it going to be moving forward? We don't know. I think there's a little bit of risk there where Rico Dowdle could assume some of those snaps. We just don't know. We have a 50-50 sample size right now. So I agree. It's a little risky moving forward, Chuba Hubbard. We know they're going to be in a lot of negative game scripts moving forward. They brought in Rico for a reason. He could get snaps. So it is a little risky. I personally, you look at the game log for Chuba Hubbard. It's one of those things where it looks really pretty, right? It looks super pretty right now. So especially for fantasy points. So I agree with you. Move forward. If you're not getting the every down back on a bad offense, you probably don't want that back.
Okay. Who is your sell of the week that maybe might see his production decline from here on out?
I think I got to move off of Quentin Johnston after the last 2 weeks. He had some big weeks here, right? 20.4 fantasy points. He's averaging over the last 2 weeks. He's a wide receiver 7 through 2 weeks. So I don't think anybody who has Quentin Johnston would even admit that, like, yes, he's the guy who's going to lead these guys in targets, lead the Chargers in fantasy points. That's not going to happen, right? Especially when you have 2 other wide receivers on the team with a higher target share. Both Keenan Allen and Ladd McConkey are out targeting him right now. And Ladd McConkey is going to get more involved, right? As the season goes along. Like, you got to buy him too, I think. The fact that he had 2 big games, 2 weeks in a row to start the year, that could look like a huge breakout season to a lot of people. And I would agree with that if the underlying utilization was coming along with those fantasy points, right? So his 8.3 fantasy points over expected is the highest of any wide receiver through 2 weeks. And whenever you see that type of disparity, you want to take advantage. Now, I don't think people are stupid and they're not going to give up, Nico Collins or Brian Thomas Jr. I think QJ, with the elevated fantasy points that he had over the last 2 weeks, I would try to take advantage. I just don't want that asset on my roster and not take advantage of such good production.
So I never thought I'd be in this position, but both this offense and Quentin Johnston have kind of warranted me to point out that I agree that he's not going to be the wide receiver 5 the rest of the season, but I do believe this Chargers offense might be able to support 3 top 36 wide receivers the rest of the way. And many leagues start 3 wide receivers, or this might be your second flex that we're talking about here. And just let me outline why. Just 18% of the Chargers targets are going to running backs or tight ends. Okay. That means we get 82% of target percentage for a team that is number 1 in neutral pass rate by a mile very soon, going to Ladd McConkey, Keenan Allen, and yes, Quentin Johnston. So what we've seen so far is every single time there's broken coverage, single high, 2 high, quarters, cover 6, all this type of stuff, Quentin Johnston is getting missiles launched to him down the field because Justin Herbert recognizes that and just puts these passes on an absolute laser. And so this might be a bit more high variance as we go through this soon, but I don't know if the Chargers are reverting back to this people's perception of them that, they're even going to be 20th in neutral pass rate. To me, this is a top 10 neutral pass rate team the rest of the way with how this offense is performing and how they're calling these plays. And for that reason, I think you can still keep Quentin Johnston, and it's not like a total fluke that he will be a top 36 option the rest of the way.
I agree with you. I think the big players are going to continue to be there for QJ. And I think he's going to be very, very viable as a fantasy starter. Like, I would start him this week. I would start him until we don't see it anymore. Until last year we were kind of doing the same thing, and then he gave you a 0 in the box score. But it's something that, you kind of have to get used to. But I think, I would probably put him around that, maybe George Pickens range-ish, maybe a little bit lower than that, the volatile Jameson Williams, type of player. That's where I think he should be rest of season, which is pretty good. That's an upgrade for him, coming from last year.
So just to look at some numbers, like Jameson Williams is wide receiver 22 at this point. Ricky Pearsall's wide receiver 30. I would try to get Ricky Pearsall for Quentin Johnston. I would do that straight up 1-to-1 and see what happens from your league. Okay, back to your viewer questions. We still have a number of them to go to. This is from Joshua Felix.
Hey guys, I'm in a 12-team PPR with 2 flexes. I don't really have a solid wide receiver one, so I'm thinking about trading Bijan and Drake Maye for CeeDee and Dak. I'm not quite sure how to feel about trading away Bijan, but I feel like that stack would be one of the few things worth trading him for. I have Chase Brown and Jordan Mason as my other running backs with Tootin on the bench, so nothing that would quite replace Bijan, but let me know if you think CeeDee and Dak would be fair for that deal. Thank you.
Faraz, this is a fascinating one because arguably the running back one for the wide receiver one. Your thoughts?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what this is. This is just a CeeDee for Bijan trade here. And I would love to know who your RB1 would be if you move off of Bijan, because these, or should I say Bijan, because these high-end RB1s are really hard to come by. Like, I think there are just higher chances that whoever your current wide receiver 1 is, whoever your current wide receiver 2 is, they can have a spike week to give you a wide receiver 1 week than a non-Bijan running back can give you. So me personally, I'm leaning towards keeping Bijan. Maye is a little bit of a uptick from Dak for me, not by that much. I would probably call that a wash. I think Maye has a little bit of a higher ceiling because of the rushing upside, but that's not really what this deal is about. This deal is all about CeeDee and Bijan. And for me personally, I would just continue to start, Bijan, and then hopefully you wide receivers can fill in, and the volatility of those wide receivers can help you have those boom weeks that you're hoping for from a real wide receiver one.
This is firmly a keep Bijan Robinson. I do not want to trade him away. They are using him like Todd Gurley was used with the LA Rams. They have totally lowered Michael Penix's ADOT, and sure, that might be matchup based in the first 2 weeks, but it's gone from 10.6 yards down to 6.9. And it's because Bijan Robinson is getting so many of these swing passes, getting him out in space and being just an attacking threat in the receiving game. And yes, on the Dak and Drake Maye part of this, like, while I think Dak Prescott might lead the NFL in passing yards, he has to lead the NFL in passing yards in order to be a great fantasy asset. And you compare that with Drake Maye, who can be just a fine passer on a week-to-week basis with questionable wide receiver weapons. But as we saw in week 2, which he looked quite good, if he does get a 6-yard touchdown run like he did in week 1, then you're already getting and matching Dak Prescott in fantasy points. I mean, look, we can all see that Dak Prescott has outperformed Drake Maye as a pure quarterback so far through 2 games. But Drake Maye, because of that rushing, is quarterback 10, and Dak Prescott is quarterback 21 because he has to throw for all these touchdowns in order to get there. So I am firmly on the Bijan and Drake Maye side of this versus CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott.
I love how they're using Bijan, and some people might look at the Tyler Algier getting so many carries last week and say, oh, like, look, it's a shared backfield. But like, no, look at how many times they ran the ball last week. Bijan would have had like 45 carries if they gave all the word to him. Algier had a fine game, but Bijan, like you said, using him in the receiving game, we saw that first pass, the first touchdown of the NFL season was that Bijan screen pass, and nobody could catch him. So it's going to get even better from here, man. Penix is going to improve a little bit. That offense is going to get better overall. And Bijan might even have some even more insane weeks towards the end of the year.
People focus in too much, I think, on split backfields and, touch shares. When we're talking about this Falcons backfield, they are number one in running back usage. It's just like the Detroit Lions have been last year. So when you're scoring points and you're using your backfield to this degree, then it's okay that one guy gets 63% and the other guy gets 37%, because that 63% is still going to match the likes of, bottom teams in terms of running back usage and true bell cows when you just look at their raw stats on top of that. Let's go to another viewer question. This is from Carl Fro about our favorite topic of rookies.
Gentlemen, in a 12-team PPR league, I traded away Juwan Johnson and Ramondre Stevenson for Matthew Golden and RJ Harvey. As an avid fan of the show, it's a smash success for me with zero regrets. I want to ask the question to you all. Do you see an issue with storing too many rookies on my team as I wait for that post-buy rookie bump to have them be every week starters? Now that I have Woody Marks, RJ Harvey, Bashal Tootin, Matthew Golden, and Christian Kirk and Diggs rounding out my bench, trying to decide what my last flex spot will be. Thank you, and don't forget, like and subscribe.
Faraz, the age-old question. How many rookies is too many rookies?
This many rookies. This many rookies is too many rookies. And I get it. Listen, in this particular situation, I'm not sure if I want to just say like, okay, I have too many rookies. I don't want to trade for more. You're already in it. Keep going. Why not? Just have your whole roster be rookies, man. Like, it's okay. In this situation, I'm assuming you already have a high-end tight end, in which case I'd be more than happy to take a shot on two rookies who can have a great second half of the year, man. I really am. I'm cool with that, especially RJ Harvey. Like, everybody knows. Like, I'm a big fan of RJ Harvey. Big fan of the talent, big fan of the system that he's in once he will get the opportunity. This is historically a two-back system. Sean Payton has historically used two running backs, and right now it's really a J.K. Dobbins offense. I really don't see that, continuing to be the case. Alvin Kamara had a slow start. Like these rookies, you can finish as a fantasy RB2. You can finish as a fantasy RB1 even. That's the ceiling for a Sean Payton RB2. So I also think Ramondre is a nice little sell, right now after his big week. I do think this is a potential short-term loss here for a potential league-winning move. You just have to be patient here, but I think I'm cool with it.
The important note is he's not forcing these two rookies immediately into his starting lineup. These are basically all these rookies of Matthew Golden, RJ Harvey, Bashal Tootin, Woody Marks, and then two vets in Christian Kirk and Stephon Diggs, all for one flex spot immediately, which is, I think, a really good spot to be in, because you're allowed to then wait on these rookies. You're allowed to wait on the post-bye rookie bump until we get to either injuries happen or bye weeks happen into the future. So I am with you. I would make this deal. Now, I do want to stick up for a moment on Juwan Johnson, because I think you can easily make the case of him being the tight end 5 the rest of the season. He is a legit weapon in this offense. But at the same time, I highly doubt that you even drafted Juwan Johnson. You probably picked him up. So he's probably the second tight end on your roster, like you and I theorized. You probably already have, Trey McBride or Brock Bowers or Tyler Warren or Tucker Kraft. If you have one of those 4, or maybe even Travis Kelce, like, deal away Juwan Johnson and try to upgrade some of your bench or flex spots just like this. So yeah, look, RJ Harvey, it hasn't happened yet. It's been 2 weeks. Matthew Golden, guess what? When a player like Jaden Reed is down for the next 8 to 10 to even more weeks, possibly season ending, you're almost certainly, unless something is just banana land, going to get a natural uptick in Matthew Golden. And it's not just deep shot after deep shot. It can also be, the gimmies in the short to intermediate range on top of this. So the best parts of the fantasy season are ahead for Matthew Golden and RJ Harvey. And I would throw that out there too with your other 2 rookies in Bashal Tootin and Woody Marks at the exact same time.
You can potentially start Bashal Tootin in your flex this
100%.
week. You could start, Stephon Diggs in a full PPR league if you have to. Not a huge ceiling there, but Christian Kirk could come back. He would probably slide in to be the wide receiver 2 there behind Nico Collins. So you have some guys that you can start right now while they immediately for the long term, build up some value over time. And you can be patient here. This is a great situation to be in, to be honest with you. And yes, Juwan Johnson, I just checked. He is my tight end 5 in my rest of season rankings. So I'm with you on that.
Let's go to Duval with a 10-team full PPR question.
I need help at running back. I am in a 10-person league, full PPR, 2 flex spots. My wide receivers, I'm looking to trade away a receiver because I'm deep there. I have Brian Thomas Jr., Travis Hunter, Nico Collins, George Pickens, Calvin Ridley, Matthew Golden, Darnell Mooney, and Keenan Allen. Y'all know why I watch this show. I've been tuned in all summer. Okay. Running backs though. Amari Hampton, Hendo, Tyler Algier, Brian Robinson Jr. I got to improve that. There are a couple of teams that are light on receiver, heavy on running back, so I'm offering them trades or wanting to. None of my big name receivers have had a big game yet. Not a lot of trade ammunition coming from like Nico Collins or Brian Thomas Jr., for example. I'm trying to swing big. I'm deep at receiver, so I'm thinking about offering Nico Collins for either someone like Bucky Irving, Josh Jacobs. Would I be crazy to offer Nico Collins for Javonte Williams? He's got 220 plus games in my league. Your thoughts, Nico Collins? Am I okay to trade him away for a bigger name running back than I have?
Faraz, he asked us, is Duval crazy?
I don't think he's crazy. I don't think he's crazy. Like, he would be crazy if he was selling Nico super low. And in this case, I don't think he's necessarily selling Nico super low. I think he's getting good value for him. I think even if Nico was doing his thing, right, and what we were used to, I think it was still, these trades could still be on the table and I could still be okay with it. So the fact that Nico's underperforming and you could potentially, hopefully this isn't completely hypothetical, hopefully this could be actually on the table for you. I'm perfectly fine grabbing Bucky first and then Jacobs. That would be amazing. Is it crazy for Javonte? It could be. It could be.
Fringe.
I might.
Yes.
Yeah, it's fringe. Yeah, I could keep Nico there, I think, because I need to see more because I'm a Nico fanboy personally. But I think this helps a lot because you have Keenan Allen, who you were able to grab super late in your drafts, and you're basically plugging him in. And I was like, he's been killing it. He could be a wide receiver 2 for you, at least for the short term, until Ladd McConkey, does what we know he could do. So me personally, man, if this is something you can do, which I don't believe you can do, just saying, I think I would definitely make this move.
So Duval, hopefully this is a lesson learned for you, because in a 10-team league, you should never exit your draft with running backs of Amari Hampton, Trevion Henderson, Tyler Algier, and Brian Robinson. And the issue is, especially in the 10-team, I understand it's full PPR, but you got way too trigger happy when it came to wide receivers. Like, if I don't know what your draft looks like, but I'm just going to guess. I'm assuming that your first and second round picks were Nico Collins and Brian Thomas Jr. If that's the case, you can't keep scratching the itch. Like, you can't then get all of Travis Hunter and George Pickens and Calvin Ridley and Darnell Mooney and Matthew Golden at your wide receiver room. Like, that is way too much of an investment. If you were going basically in a 10-team league 0 running back without taking a running back in the top 2 rounds, then you needed to have stopped after 3 or 4 of those names and heavily invested in the running back position. And you didn't. So if you can't move Nico for Jacobs or Bucky, I would try to do a 2-for-1 for Calvin Ridley and Darnell Mooney for another running back that people might be souring on just a little bit. And if you can't do that, heck, I even think a buy low this week is still Woody Marks. Because to me, his role in the Houston Texans could grow as we go along.
What about Keenan? Would you make a move with Keenan as, because he always has a couple good wide receivers
for us is, I think you could easily start Keenan Allen or suggest that he's the 3rd and at worst 4th best wide receiver asset just for week 3 on this roster, because of how much they're passing the football, how great he is in sitting his zone, how great his connection is with Justin Herbert. Like, I think BTJ and Nico outscore him for the entire season. But if you ask me which of those outscore him for week 3, I'm not sure if they do outscore Keenan Allen in week 3.
Would you look at Keenan as the trade away target potentially if you don't want to move Nico? Like, would you trade away Keenan to potentially get that running back that you're missing? Because he's been scoring a ton of fantasy points the last 2 weeks. That target share is leading the team right now, and he could be a pretty attractive player for, maybe a wide receiver needy team, another team that needs a running back. I think you could potentially move Keenan instead of moving Nico, because for the rest of the season, obviously, you'd much rather have Nico, right?
Yep, definitely possible. Okay, let's go to Shang Tron with the 10-team full PPR league as well.
What's good, y'all? Long-time listener, first-time caller. Questions about a 10-team half PPR. I'm thinking about offering Jamar Chase and James Conner for CMC and Tetairoa McMillan. Am I crazy?
So Faraz, we've touched on Chase Brown as it relates to the Bengals, T. Higgins as it relates to the Bengals. What about Jamar Chase here?
Come on. Like, what are we doing here? Get Christian McCaffrey.
Instant accept, right?
Yeah, like get Christian McCaffrey, ask for the trophy, start getting the engraving ready. Like, just take Christian McCaffrey here. And on top of that, you can T-Mac. Like, is there a world where without Joe Burrow, that T-Mac outscores Jamar Chase rest of season?
Ooh.
Is there a world? I think there's a world. That
Are we living in that world right now?
Because that world might exist. Regardless, I'm making this trade just for CMC. Like, if you told me that T-Mac wasn't even included in this trade, I would take CMC for Jamar Chase and Connor. I think T-Mac is just a nice little cherry on top, a really good cherry on top, but I think this is a smash, accept.
So on the show, we appreciate all the viewers and the listeners, especially if you send in video questions while you're on the job. I just want to warn you, this might be a loud video, but for this man, since you are watching and contributing to this program versus being on the clock and doing your actual job, we wanted to include it on the show.
Hey, what's up, guys? Sorry I'm working. It might be a little loud. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Love your stuff. Some guy offered me Drake London, and I give Kenneth Walker and throw in Uchi, receiver from New England, or Hollywood Brown. I got Rasheed Weiss on my bench, so I don't really care about Hollywood. But more than anything, Drake London. I get Drake London. He gets Kenneth Walker. Thanks, guys. Hey, love your stuff.
Faraz, yes or no?
Yes. And I appreciate, I'm so happy that we include this video because I'm with you, man. The fact that he was like doing his job and he was able to ask these questions, get these.
What do you think his job is, Faraz? Your thoughts?
I think he's like working a shop. I think he's, working in a shop, creating some stuff. Like, I don't know what he's doing. Just a workshop, some sort of workshop.
Any shop.
Just a shop. Like metals, heavy metals.
I think he's a blacksmith. Is that what you're saying?
I think so. I think so. I love
Age of Empires, and he's a blacksmith. Yes.
Yes, exactly. Or like Elden Ring. He's like one of those blacksmiths from Elden Ring. That's exactly. I'm gonna DM him after this. And now I have to find out. Are you from the past? This is an accept for me, man. I'm taking Drake London all day long. I love the connection that he's showing with Michael Penix. This last game against Minnesota, like they play so much, zone coverage, so much too high safety stuff. Like this is not like an ideal Drake London game. They just ran the ball like crazy. They didn't need to pass it. So this is I think this was an outlier game for the Falcons passing game here. So I'm taking Drake London all day long. There's a lot of, I love Kenneth Walker, man, but Charbonnet, he did get more work than him last week, which to me is like, okay, well, so what happens in week 3, right? I think Kenneth Walker's just going to get more work, but that's just me thinking what's going to happen. I think it's still a little bit of an ambiguous situation moving forward. So why not remove yourself from the ambiguity and take a sure thing? And that's a wide receiver 1 in Drake London.
I'm with you. Drake London is the right call here. So far, the Atlanta Falcons are 30th in neutral pass rate. So that is contributing to Drake London being the wide receiver 47 in points right now. And even the wide receiver 17 in, expected points. That's probably not high enough for a guy that was drafted as a top 10 wide receiver this season. But we also need to look at the schedule, and that could have dictated, the neutral pass rates here and them being up on the scoreboard. It was against the Buccaneers in week 1 and then the Minnesota Vikings in week 2. Like, do you want to put everything on Michael Penix against a Brian Flores pass rush and defense? Probably not. Now we get the, Carolina Panthers, the Washington Commanders over the next 2 weeks, 2 areas that if we look after week 4, I think the value of Drake London and thoughts of him in the fantasy community is only going to be higher at that point. So we're on the same page here. And we might have been on the same page with nearly every single trade here. And I wasn't expecting that at all heading into the show for us.
Josh told me before the show started, he said, I think we're going to disagree on a lot of stuff here. And we actually came in and thinking like, okay, well, maybe not.
We're always on the same page. That does it for us. Again, thank you all for sending in your questions. We'll have another one of these episodes next Thursday and every Thursday moving forward. For us, we have our wide receiver and quarterback rankings coming out on the channel over the next 2 days. And as always, your start sit questions on the show live every single Sunday morning. And for us, people can find your stuff over at Upper Hand Fantasy on Instagram as well.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you guys. This was a great show, man. Thanks for all the questions, especially the guy who sent it from his shop from Elden Ring. I really appreciate that. Upper Hand Fantasy over on Instagram. Shoot me a message.
We include all blacksmiths here on this channel. Talk to you next time. See you.